Ahora me sentaré, diré que conectamos y tal y todo esto. Y bueno, en teoría sí, porque sabemos que está conectado al otro lado. Tenemos esta conversación con Dennis Lehane. Yo sé que nos gustaría tenerlo aquí. Y yo soy el primero que nos gustaría tenerlo aquí. Pero también quiero que valoremos la oportunidad de tener esta conversación en directo. Hay 8.500 kilómetros a Vancouver. Dennis Lehane, además, esta última novela es una novela que ya he expresado en varias veces que es su testamento literario, porque él se dedica al audiovisual. Está en una productora en Vancouver precisamente trabajando en su próximo proyecto audiovisual. Y el hecho de que haya, pues eso, accedido a estar con nosotros, pues es algo que yo creo que está muy bien y que además le hemos entregado el Premio Francisco González Ledesma, es decir, se lo hemos enviado por correo. Mandamos un señor hace como un mes y medio andando para Vancouver, ¿vale? Y nos han dicho que ha llegado, o alguien parecido a él, porque dice que ha recibido el premio, que está muy contento. Entonces también me gustaría, que no os digo nada, que le demostramos que el público de Valencia es un público, pues eso, un público como son los valencianos, que voy a decir, si soy de Murcia, no os puedo decir nada, ¿vale? Así que nada, vamos a empezar con esta aventura, que seguro que es estupenda. Y bueno, vamos a empezar esta conexión. Entiendo que todos los audios están bien, la intérprete bien, todo el mundo bien. Mamá, ¿estás viendo esto? ¿Todo bien? Así que conectamos con Vancouver y vamos a ver si tenemos a Denis aquí al otro lado de la pantalla. Esto es suspense, ¿eh?
Hello.
Hola, Denis. ¿Qué tal? Encantado.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Soy Santiago Álvarez del Festival Valencia Negra y lo primero que quería decirte es que no estoy aquí solo hablando contigo, sino que hay un montón de gente que está encantada de que estés con nosotros y que quiere demostrártelo. Porque
Oh, wow, that's a lot of people. Wow. Hey, everybody.
Muy bien, pues Denis, un placer estar contigo, como decíamos, un honor. Y lo primero que queríamos decirte es explicarte un poco lo que es este galardón por el cual, bueno, este premio que te hemos entregado, el Premio Francisco González Ledesma. El Premio Francisco González Ledesma es un premio que damos que nombra a un escritor muy importante en la tradición española de novela negra y que han recibido los grandes autores españoles, pero también autores muy relevantes en otros países, como por ejemplo Joe Nesbo y James Ellroy. Y nos parece todo un honor que tu nombre esté unido a ellos en este premio. Así que enhorabuena.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Muy bien, querría empezar porque esta charla se llama Uno de los nuestros, ¿verdad? Uno de los nuestros hace referencia a esta película de Scorsese que se llama Godfellas, pero que en España se tradujo como Uno de los nuestros. Nos da la sensación de que Dennis Lehane es uno de los nuestros en el sentido de que cuando hablamos con cualquier lector de género negro, la gente tiene distintos gustos, pero a todo el mundo le gusta Dennis Lehane. Entonces me gustaría que nos dijeras cómo llevas este reconocimiento cuando precisamente la escritura es algo solitario, la escritura es algo que uno hace en casa solo, hace en su soledad, digamos, y sin embargo eso te conecta con miles, con millones de personas.
Yeah, it does, but I don't think you can. I don't think you can write well if you think about that. So I block all that out, and I'm always surprised. To this day, I'm pretty surprised that people know my work to the degree that they do.
Ahora presentas, bueno, en España, presentas tu última novela, que es Golpe de Gracia. En inglés el título original me parece que es Small Mercies. Esta novela nos huele a testamento literario. Es una novela dura en la que retratas un conflicto social y racial, pero que tienes esa sensación de querer acabar de contar un montón de cosas, ¿no? Que están relacionadas con tu producción, en el fondo.
Yeah, I mean, I think I always write. I always write from a place of class consciousness. I'm very aware of what it was like to grow up working class, and um, and I think I write a lot about racial issues. I think my first book was very much about racism. This latest book is very much about racism. It appears prominently in The Given Day, for example. It appears in Live by Night. It's just something that I find uh, really a defining issue in America.
Hablas de una historia que tú, de hecho, de alguna manera viviste en carne propia en el Boston del año 74. Creo que tú deberías tener como unos 9 años, ¿verdad? ¿Cómo impacta ese enfrentamiento en un niño de 9 años que está educado para un mundo en el que todo el mundo tiene que ser feliz, ¿no? O que todo el mundo, que está lejos, digamos, de esa sombra. Y de repente te encuentras con un enfrentamiento tan graves?
Well, yeah, what I think at 9, to give the audience context, when I was 9, Boston by court order desegregated their public schools, and they did that by sending children from predominantly African American schools into white neighborhoods and children from white neighborhoods into predominantly African American neighborhoods. And one neighborhood in particular, the next neighborhood over from me, South Boston, responded with extreme violence to this, and it shook me to be 9 years old and see adults throwing rocks at buses that had children in them. It shook me to see graffiti everywhere that said things like "kill all N-words" and KKK, which was shocking. So I don't think after 9 I was ever quite the same. I didn't look at the world the same, certainly. I didn't look at adults the same. That's very true. And I think, like, as you said at the beginning, the whole point of childhood is innocence. I mean, it's believing that adults have the answers. It's believing that the world is essentially a good place. And I think when you take that from somebody at a young age, well, in my case, it created a writer.
En esta novela, Golpe de Gracia, Small Mercies, nos regalas el personaje de Mary Pat, que es un personaje duro, evidentemente, pero también quizás su gran riqueza no viene solamente de ser una mujer muy fuerte, sino de ser un personaje contradictorio, un personaje atrapado por parte de ese odio, ¿verdad? Y por parte de ese amor también, y que va descubriendo a lo largo de un viaje, por decirlo así, un montón de cosas que se transmiten al espectador. ¿Cómo nace en ti ese personaje de Mary Pat?
I knew several women like her growing up. Very tough women. Angry, heavy drinkers, chain smokers, and and they they were very poor. They came from poverty, and I think there was a moment where she came into my head, and I thought, I've never seen that woman in a book ever. And that's a wonderful feeling as a writer. That's what you dream of. Like all of a sudden I was like, I know something that nobody else knows.
Ujú.
I know a person, and I happen to have the talent and the experience and the job by which I can put that person out into the world. And nobody else can. I was pretty sure nobody else could write that person. And so from that point on, I was so excited. Once I got Mary Pat, and I knew her in my bones, once I got her, the whole book just opened up to me.
Em, Creo que he leído en algún lugar que en algunos momentos de tu carrera te fue realmente duro meterte en cierto tipo de personajes. Y estoy hablando en los niños de Mystic River, por ejemplo, o en el personaje central de Shutter Island. Cuéntanos qué pasó en ese momento de transferencia de lo literario con lo personal y si eso te ha pasado con este personaje de Mary Pat también o por el contrario no ha sido así.
Um, I felt very I felt a growing sense of empathy with her as I went through the book. I mean, it's a tricky thing. You're writing about somebody who's racist, and really goes on a journey in which she has to understand that it's her hate that has caused so much of the destruction in her life. And um and so, but the any good writer, I think anybody will, I hope most writers would back me up on this. You can't judge your characters. You just can't. It's a very bad idea. And so I didn't judge Mary Pat going in. I just said, she's a racist, she's a this, she's a that. Let's see where she takes me. And then as the book progressed and I leaned hard into her negative aspects, I was not going to shy away from them. I was just going to say, this is who this woman is. And I'm not giving you a hero. I'm giving you a kind of an anti-hero. And once I leaned into that, then I was allowed to, in the best sense, find the things that I liked about her. Because people are paradoxes. And there was a lot in Mary Pat to like, and there's a lot to not like. And so as the journey continued, I began to empathize with her more and more. And then and then I began to feel a great sadness, which is why I think Bobby comes into the book. Bobby's the male character. He's not really a main character. He's sort of the main supporting character. And he shows up in the book, and I think to lighten it. I think it just needed to be lightened at that point, because when he shows up, it's at a very dark pitch. And I was like, if I keep going at this pitch, nobody's going to want to read this book because it's so brutally dark.
He también escuchado muchas opiniones de lectores que dicen que es un libro muy pesimista, pero también es un libro que es crudo y que desde luego al final sí que, primero por el personaje de Bobby y luego por el final propiamente dicho del libro, que no desvelaremos por el público, sí que se nota que intentas meter ese rayo de esperanza y sobre todo en la frase final, ¿no? Que dices que el mundo está lleno de eh, pequeñas desgracias y pequeños milagros, ¿no? ¿Es esa la visión del mundo de Dennis Lehane?
Yeah, yeah. I think most human beings are good people. They're just trying to get by. I do believe that. I believe that the vast majority of the world, let's say 90% of the population, is just good people trying to get by. And it's the 10% who destroy the world. It's the 10%. We call them bad actors here. It's the people who just don't realize or don't care that we should be part of a community, that we are all one. And who are willing to destroy the world for their greed, for their narcissism, for their whatever the motive may be. And so I have hope in human beings. I'm just not sure I have hope in humanity, because I'm not sure we can survive that 10%.
Nuevamente, el Golpe de Gracia, que es una novela muy densa, tiene mucho que ver con casi toda tu obra, ¿no? Con Boston, pero no sé si esta es la parte más personal de tu carrera. Sabemos que naciste en Dorchester y, claro, en el siglo XXI, en 2024, es imposible leer una novela, o me resulta muy difícil, sin comprobar, ¿no? Los lugares, abrir un mapa y ver realmente cómo esas calles están tan cerca unas de otras y cómo es posible que ese amor y ese odio estuvieran tan cerca el uno del otro. Es algo sorprendente, ¿es así?
Yes. Yes, it's incredible. It's South Boston is extremely close to Roxbury, which was at the time the African American neighborhood. They're so close. And yet I can guarantee you that nobody from South Boston knew how to get even, they would be lost in Roxbury. They would be lost. They would show up, you could drop them there 12 blocks away or 20 blocks away maybe, and they wouldn't know how to get out because they never went there. And I write about that when Mary Pat follows somebody into Roxbury. And all of a sudden she's like, oh boy, I don't know where I am. And she's terrified. And that's a reality of Boston in the 1970s for sure. That if you came from my neighborhood, which was even closer, and you got lost there, you would be terrified. And they would be terrified. African Americans would be terrified if they came into South Boston and they didn't know where they were. And they had an even more legitimate reason, because there was a much higher likelihood they'd get killed. Where the fear, that white people had was not backed up by data. It was not backed up by facts. You could be lost in that black neighborhood and you had a good chance of getting out alive. If you were black and you were lost in South Boston in 1974, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, you had a very high likelihood of getting hurt.
No sé si, porque una parte de tu escritura evidentemente se centra en los fundamentos del thriller y la aventura, es decir, en una trama que te engancha, una acción trepidante, personajes que son ventanas, pero no sé qué parte hay una parte evidentemente social en toda tu obra. ¿Y esa parte social es una parte que emerge de la literatura cuando tú te enfrentas a la página en blanco? ¿O es una misión, por decirlo así, o una responsabilidad que tú crees que debes aportar en la obra?
Well, I just believe that the rules of literature are the same, whatever genre you're writing in. For me, they are anyway. There should be depth of character. There should be depth of language. There should be depth of insight. You should be trying to say something about the human race. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why we write. Well, that's why I write. And then everything else just becomes what box you're in. It happens to be, I happen to be in the noir box. Fine. Great. Good with me. Because I like what Cormac McCarthy called fiction of mortal event. That means big things happen. I'm not the guy who could write a book like, say, Henry James, where people talk about a cracked bowl for 200 pages. I can't do that. I just can't. So I want things to happen. I want dire, big things to happen within my books. And if that places me in a genre cage, then that's okay. That's totally fine because it's what I love to do. It's what I love to do. How I'm labeled for doing what I love to do is somebody else's problem. It's not mine.
Em, Nos hablas del Boston de los años 70, una situación que para un español, ya te digo que es totalmente un descubrimiento y una sorpresa. ¿Cómo de importante crees que es esa mirada al pasado para conocer nuestro presente? Y si hay realmente una conexión todavía en Estados Unidos, por ejemplo, entre ese pasado del que hablas y el presente más actual.
Oh my God, look around. I mean, you know, race politics right now are dominating the world. And I think at a global level, and I don't write at a global level, but I can think at a global level. At a global level, the world is running out of resources. It's as simple as that. And um, the the people who control those limited amount of resources um, know that the easiest way to keep the people who don't have those resources from charging up the hill to get them is to keep those people fighting amongst themselves. And the easiest way to do that is race. So, or religion, race or religion, those are or culture. So I think that's happening all over the world right now. I don't know the political situation in Spain. You guys always just seem kind of quiet and like you figured it out. I know that's probably not true, but I do know the situation in Italy, and I do know the situation in Russia, and I do know the situation in the United States, and it is very race-based. It is very much making sure that people of one color hate people of another color. It's very important. That's the strategy. And so you won't turn around and say, huh, why are they on yachts and I can't even afford a car?
Suele decirse a veces que los escritores escriben o los artistas simplemente hacen sus obras para exorcizar sus demonios, ¿no? Para sacar algo que tienen dentro con lo que les atribula, que les preocupa y que necesitan echar fuera, ¿no? ¿Cuáles son los demonios de Dennis Lehane?
Ah. Um, I once heard a quote that I adore, which is the primary tension of the artist is between needing to express oneself and needing to hide. And I like to hide. So um, I don't yeah, no, my demons are mine, baby. They're all mine. And I think you can see very clearly it doesn't take a genius to figure out that I have a lot of I think one of the most telling things about me is I'm the child of immigrants, working class immigrants. And I saw the way they were treated because of the way they spoke. People assume that if you speak with an accent, you're stupid. And so because of that, I grew up with a lot of anger towards people who would treat other people without respect because of the kind of clothes they wear or the way they speak or the size of their wallet. And I would say that has informed almost every single thing I've written. That I have a very, very clear sense of anger about that. And it's not hard to trigger even now. So I don't. I run TV shows now. That's what I do. I have 400 people working with me right now on a TV show. If one of those 400 treats another of the 400 badly in front of me, they will lose their job. It's as simple as that. People deserve to be treated with respect. That's the guiding principle of my life.
En tu obra, conocemos toda tu obra, porque la verdad es que en España es muy leída todas tus sagas, por decirlo así, pero sí que hay dos títulos que resaltan un poco, ya los hemos mencionado antes, por lo menos en España y creo que también a nivel mundial, que son Mystic River y Shutter Island. ¿Hay un momento para ti que eso cambia tu carrera como narrador? Y me refiero tanto a la publicación de los libros como a la proyección de esas exitosas películas.
Yeah, I mean, Mystic River was, I think, the book that changed my reputation and maybe cemented my reputation. Shutter Island, the film, which is the most popular film Martin Scorsese ever made, apparently. I didn't know that for years, but apparently it is so well known. I mean, it's the only thing my kids are impressed by because it's on TikTok. So my children are actually like, oh, dad's kind of almost cool because of Shutter Island. So I would say yes, that's that the sense of the shadow cast by those books is very true. Well, one by the book and one by the movie. And but again, I have a very strange ability to completely check out of I completely separate what I do in this little room from its reception. Completely. And I'm always shocked when people approach me and say that they've read my work. I'm always kind of shocked. And I'm like, oh, right, that guy. You know, that guy, right? The guy who writes the books. Right, that's me. Oh, okay. Interesting. So yeah. So I guess I would say yes. I'm well aware that Mystic River and Shutter Island have the biggest name recognition. And Shutter Island, to be honest, is the biggest. That's the one that, boom, you can get into a conversation quick. You know, you just say, oh, you wrote, you know, that's the guy who wrote Shutter Island. People go, what? Immediately. And it doesn't matter what country I'm in. It doesn't matter. It's because of the film, I believe. That film is just keeps going and going and going. People don't talk about the film Mystic River, even though it was praised much more highly. It won more awards. They don't speak about it the same way they speak about Shutter Island, even now. And my daughter, who's 14, all her friends have seen it. All 14-year-olds know Shutter Island, at least 14-year-old girls.
Wow.
So.
Vaya. Yo quería hablarte de Mystic River porque, bueno, muchas veces se dicen que los libros y los grandes libros no hacen grandes películas y que las grandes películas no hacen grandes libros, ¿no? Pero dejando al margen Shutter Island, que nos encanta también, Mystic River, siendo no exactamente la misma historia, con algunas variaciones, sí que son dos obras de arte maravillosas, la novela y la película. Pero creo... A ver si nos dices esto. Creo que cuando te dijeron que era Clint Eastwood el que iba a hacer la película, tenías dudas, vamos a decir así. Tenías dudas.
No, not about Clint Eastwood. No,
Oh.
I had very strong doubts about anybody else doing it. So I wouldn't take conversation. I wouldn't have to take phone calls. I wouldn't sell it. I left my agent over it, my film agent. I did not want to sell it to Hollywood. And then Clint Eastwood came along. And then I said, oh, well, all right, I'll take that call. And I got on the phone with him and he convinced me over the course of a few days that he understood the material at a level that I needed people to understand. What Clint finally said to me that really won me over was, he said, you know, this isn't a mystery. I don't care. I could care less about the mystery. This is a classic tragedy. And I was like, thank you. Once he said that, because I modeled the book as I wrote the book as a classic tragedy. I spent a lot of time studying Greek tragedy and Shakespearean tragedy and reading a lot of Russian tragedy. And so I was like, I want to write a tragedy. And if you don't get that, then you're not gonna do the film correctly. He got it. He brought in Brian Helgeland. Brian got it. Brian wrote the script in record time. I mean, Brian wrote that script in, I think, 8 weeks. And then boom, they were off to do it. We were off to do it. It was amazing. It was an amazing experience. And I always say it spoiled me. And so if I don't think I'm going to get the same treatment I had with Clint Eastwood, I don't let you make my book. It's as simple as that. Why should I? You know? And so I've had now 5 film adaptations, and I'm not saying that all of them were completely successful, but none of them are an embarrassment. And that's what you fear. What you fear is an embarrassment, you know? And I have not had that at all. And that's because I'm very particular about who I will sell my books to, based on the Clint Eastwood experience.
Quería que habláramos también de una serie en la que participaste con muchas otras personas, pero que es una serie completamente diferente y completamente inmortal de los gloriosos tiempos de la HBO, que es The Wire, ¿eh? Una serie muy distinta, con un ritmo, con una forma de hacer las cosas que algunos no hemos visto, no hemos vuelto a ver en las series de televisión actual. ¿Cuál crees que es el secreto de esa serie? ¿Qué se dio en aquel momento para que pudiera producirse esta serie que fuera al mismo tiempo una manera de tantear la realidad de manera tan maravillosa y al mismo tiempo que fuera superventas, por decirlo así? Es decir, que llegara a mucha gente.
Well, The Wire, as you know it, was not The Wire until the 5th season, until the DVDs. This is how old it is. Until the DVDs went across to Europe. That's when The Wire became The Wire. Until then, we were the least watched television show on cable, on premium cable, for 4 years, which is saying we were the least watched television show on television. And that allowed us to be the show we were, because HBO just didn't care as long as we came in under budget. They just let us do whatever didn't care in the best way. They let us do what we wanted to do. And what we wanted to do, us writers, was follow the vision that David Simon and Ed Burns, the co-creators and showrunners, had of America. We wanted to just serve their vision. And it wasn't about us. It wasn't about anything. It was about that vision of what America was becoming. And it was great. It was great because nobody bothered us. We didn't cost them anything. And so my agent would call me and she would say, you know, I can get you a job on network now. I can get you. I was like, why would I go to network? I don't want money. I want creative freedom. I want to be able to do something this dark, this cynical. And they let us do it. The lunatics let us do it. And so we loved it. It was an absolute joy. And everybody who was on that show as a writer had that attitude. And I feel like, now I'm a showrunner. Now I run writers' rooms. Now, and I look for one writer, and I finally found actually her. But I've been looking for one writer who has that attitude for years now. And that attitude is the show is bigger than you. The work is bigger than you. Your ego is pointless. Get it out of the room, you know? And that's it's a rare quality to find.
Leyendo las entrevistas que has concedido últimamente con tu última novela, vemos una noticia que por un lado es una mala noticia y por otro lado es una buena noticia, que es que dices que vas a dedicarte ahora casi exclusivamente al mundo audiovisual. Guionista, director, es decir, llevar parte de tu obra y seguramente nuevas obras a la pantalla. ¿Por qué ese salto ahora? ¿Es, digamos, el momento porque estás preparado? ¿Ha surgido la oportunidad? Quizás ser el director de orquesta de, como decías antes, de cientos de trabajadores es como, bueno, el mejor momento de un narrador.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. And I'm a very social person. I don't have the personality of a writer. I don't like sitting in a lonely room writing all the time. I don't like the commitment that it takes or the price you have to pay mentally and emotionally, or I have to pay mentally or emotionally to invest in characters in a novel. And also, I was kind of running out of ideas for a novel, to be honest. They were getting harder. Every book I've written has gotten harder than the last. And so now I feel like to write a novel again, I want to do it from the purest place. I want to write a novel because I have to, inside, not because I have to outside, not because somebody's telling me you're on a deadline or whatever. It's because the novel has to come out of me. That's how Small Mercies was written. It just came pouring out of me in the middle of making a television show, a show called Blackbird that, you know, I was in the middle of it. And I somehow in the middle of a crazy high pressure, 80 hours a week kind of job, I wrote Small Mercies because it just had to come out. And I want that feeling every time when I write a novel. Otherwise, I just like being around people. And, you know, I'm doing a show right now where we got a lot of crazy stuff happening in the show. And I was just arranging my schedule today because I want to be there when we do this huge car crash. And I thought, because I've never seen a car crash shot for a film before. And I was like, how would the 10-year-old me ever pass that up? You know? And so I was moving mountains to make sure that I'm going to be on set on the day that we caused this car crash. And that's not something you do as a novelist. As a novelist, you sit down and you work another sentence and another sentence and another sentence. And I think after 14 novels and 30 years, I felt like, I think I'd rather play with a camera.
En la literatura actual, una de las cosas que se dice bastante y que además tiene que ver en general con el género negro o thriller, si queremos llamarlo así, es precisamente esa excesiva influencia del medio audiovisual en la literatura, que yo en el fondo creo que tiene que ver con que a veces hay escritores que confunden las armas literarias con las armas audiovisuales. Yo no sé si tú tienes esa distinción clara o realmente vivimos en un mundo, somos hijos de este mundo en el que es tan difícil separar la página escrita del mundo audiovisual.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I do see it as a problem in some of the books I read. But as a writer, I've always believed there's this clear bifurcation between writing a book and writing for film. They're two totally different things. Like one's an elephant and the other's an apple. I mean, they're just very different. And when I write a book, it's a very personal relationship. I'm picturing kind of one person and I'm speaking to them. That's it. That's all I'm doing. And that person's sitting in a chair and they're reading a book and I'm coming out of that book and I'm speaking to that person. It's a very weird thing to describe, but that's how I feel. When I write a script, I mean, it's like you're writing a blueprint. You're writing a blueprint for 400 other people to interpret, for an art department to look at, for actors to read through, for directors to interpret, for production designers to work on, for costume, for, you know, all of that. There's tons of people, for the stunt guys, for, you know, we're doing a show in which fire has a big part right now. We have a fire guy. That's his job. His job is to play with fire on our show and make it look cool. And he comes into me every day with like, oh, wait, let me show you this. And then he does something really cool with like a blowtorch. And I'm like, awesome. I find no problem splitting film and books. Absolutely none. But I do see, and what people call cinematic writing, that's one term that I don't like, because it's not cinematic writing, it's vivid writing. We did it first. We were writing and making you form movies in your head back in the 1700s, way before film existed. That's what vivid writing does. You feel like you're living it. But bad writing is writing, lazy writing, like she had hair like Julia Roberts, you know, like this stupid crap like that. I can't, I'll put a book down if I see that line in it.
Sabemos también, creo que lo habíamos mencionado antes, que Golpe de Gracia está, creo que está vendida para Apple TV. Estás trabajando en ella, guionizando, dirigiendo.
Yep.
Al ser una obra tan importante para
I don't
ti,
know about directing.
aunque
Just
al ser una obra tan importante para ti en lo personal, trabajarlo con tanta gente es realmente, ¿se corre el peligro de perder esa cercanía, esa calidez de lo que quieres contar?
No, I don't worry about that, because in TV, this is the difference. In television in the United States, the writer producer, that's me, is in charge. Nothing gets done unless I say it has to be that way. It just, no. I mean, even right down to what somebody's wearing. That's my call. So I love being incredibly collaborative with the people I work with. That's the fun of the job. I love giving them as much freedom as they can have. But if they're wrong, I pull them back in and say, no, we gotta, no, they wouldn't wear that, or they wouldn't do that. Or I just did it. I have an actor on my show and he wanted to create his look, and he did, until he got to a hat. And I said, that hat ain't going on my show. And he was like, okay. So no, it's different. Whereas if I was writing for film, which I tend not to do much, you're at the mercy of everybody else. You just wrote all you did was write the script, and they can take it and do whatever they want with it, period. Anything they want. And your name is still attached to it. So that's why I'm not very attracted to writing for film.
Estamos ya llegando al final de esta conversación estupenda con Dennis Lehane. Me gustaría que acabáramos volviendo otra vez a la parte, digamos, más social de tu obra. Para un europeo, en la vieja Europa, Estados Unidos era una nueva oportunidad, ¿no? Era una segunda oportunidad de intentar construirnos como sociedad, ¿no? Tenemos un territorio, van a ir unas personas que tienen mucho espacio, nuevas leyes, nuevas normas, y bueno, digamos que construimos un mundo con muchos defectos, también con sus virtudes. Yo no sé si tú tienes la sensación de que en ese sentido volvemos a fracasar o simplemente damos la medida de quienes somos como seres humanos.
Oh, I think we're failing. I do think we're failing. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think there's been a march to push the world rightward to the hard right. And that march is very much I don't believe in many conspiracy theories. I really don't. I find conspiracy theories mostly ludicrous, but I do believe that it is very much coming from Russia and China to create a large bit of disinformation within the world through social media, through the internet, to make people more and more frightened and more finding the only solution to be in totalitarianism. I do believe that. And that's kind of where we're living right now. So human beings, in my opinion, I mean, I said one thing, that we are mostly essentially good. I believe that. I also believe we're all idiots. I believe we're all, just idiots. I just don't think any study of human history over and over and over and over and over again shows us making the exact same mistakes. Exact same mistakes. And so we don't learn. And I don't think I think right now the stakes are very high in the fact that we don't learn. And as a dad, it doesn't concern me. I'm old, but as a dad, it concerns me. I hate the world I'm handing to my daughters. But again, you guys seem to have it all figured out. But I don't live there. But everybody looks at Spain like, wow, Spain's just a cool place. Like Spain's just, they don't seem to fight much anymore. They got the whole imperialism out of their system a couple of centuries ago. They just want to, I think the world thinks about Spain that you love music and food and naps. And isn't that wonderful?
Bueno, Denis,
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you all for
bueno,
coming
Denis,
out.
creo que hablo en nombre de la audiencia cuando digo que estás invitadísimo a venir a Valencia y probar nuestro arroz, nuestra música, nuestras calles soleadas y todo lo demás. No,
Yeah, maybe next year.
¿verdad?
That sounds
¿Verdad?
fun. That sounds fun. I'd love it.
Pues bueno, simplemente lo que queríamos era agradecerte de nuevo tu presencia con nosotros, desearte mucha suerte para esos proyectos audiovisuales. ¡Oh, ese premio, un aplauso! ¡Un aplauso!
Thank you all. Beautiful. Look how pretty it is. Gorgeous. Thank you.
Nos encanta que te encante y que lo conserves. Y como te digo, seguiremos tu trayectoria porque la hemos seguido hasta ahora y eso no cambiará. Y nada, simplemente decirte que quedas como amigo de Valencia Negra y bueno, a ver si esta distancia, 8.500 kilómetros, hemos contado desde Vancouver a Valencia, la podemos salvar en algún momento también.
That'd be great. I'm actually in Los Angeles right now, but yes, I will make the
Ok,
trip from Los Angeles. So,
muy bien. Bueno,
cheers.
pues nada, eso.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Denis, y hasta siempre. Un abrazo fuerte.
Bye-bye. Cheers. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Muy bien, pues eso, los milagros, o sea, yo puedo decir muchas cosas, pero que un murciano. ¿Por qué os reís? ¿A quién le dice este murciano hace 20 años que iba a estar hablando con uno de sus escritores favoritos desde 8.500 kilómetros de distancia, unos poco menos porque está en Los Ángeles? Es que me ha liado. No, es que no lo sabéis, me ha liado. Él vive en Los Ángeles. Primero, os lo digo para que lo sepáis. Él ha vivido toda su vida en Boston. En Dorchester nació, que está en la parte sur de Boston. Pero luego se fue a Los Ángeles. ¿Por qué? Porque es donde está toda la industria audiovisual del mundo. Y vamos a hacer la entrevista en Vancouver, que es donde tiene la productora de esto de lo que está haciendo con Apple TV y tal. Pero por lo visto, pues a última hora ha dicho, venga, me voy a Los Ángeles, que allí es como ir al Cabañal, o sea, ir aquí al lado, ¿vale? Y entonces, pues eso. En fin, muchas gracias por estar ahí, muchas gracias por hacer Valencia Negra con nosotros. Para mí es una tarde, y para nosotros, para todo el equipo, una tarde inolvidable, porque venís, porque la compartimos juntos y ya sabéis que lo mejor de todo es que nos queda todavía mucha Valencia Negra. Así que seguimos, muchas gracias.